Hi, President Bailey. I just want to do a quick audio check to make sure that you can hear me all right.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good morning, President Bailey. This is Caitlin Cleveland. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you try again just so I can see if your voice is loud enough? Oh. President Bailey, can you do a little bit of a mic check so I can see if we can hear you loud enough? Oh, President Bailey, are you able to hear me okay?
Can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
President Bailey, can you hear us all right?
I'll try log in again.
Hi, President Bailey. Can you hear us now?
Oh, everybody, guys.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Good morning, President Bailey. This is Caitlin Cleveland. How are you doing?
Good morning, Caitlin. I'm doing good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. And before we go live, though, I just wanted to see if you have any questions about today. Our plan is just to, as soon as we go live, just a kind of really quick introduction. I'll allow members around the room to introduce themselves so that you know who is joining us here today. And then we'll turn the floor right over to yourself. And then if you're comfortable with members asking questions, then we can do a round of questions if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. So we'll go live then, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin.
Good morning and welcome to today, Wednesday, February 15th, meeting for the Standing Committee on Social Development. Today, for Public Matters Committee, we do have President Bailey from NWT Métis Nation joining us here today in order to discuss Bill 68, an act to amend the Child Daycare Act. President Bailey, before we get started, I would like to give members around the room here the opportunity to introduce themselves so that you do know who is in the room here with us today. And I will start with the member to my left.
Kevin O'Reilly, Frame Lake.
Katrina Knockleby, Great Slave.
Jane Whalen Armstrong, Mufi Ready.
Ron Bonitus, Decho.
Good morning, President Bailey. Ryland Johnson, MLA for Yellowknife North.
Thank you so much, members. And also for staff in the room today, we have Taylor Maxwell. We also have Kathleen Knuch and our law clerk, Sheila McPherson. With that, President Bailey, I would like to turn the floor over to yourself for any opening remarks and for your presentation here today that you are interested in sharing with committee. So welcome. We're very happy to have you, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving the time for the Métis Nation to give a quick presentation on Bill 68. I'll just get right on into it. The Northwest Territory Métis Nation appreciates the opportunity to comment on the government of Northwest Territory's proposed amendments to the Bill 68, an act to amend the Child Care Act. Métis Nation supports taking measures to ensure child care facilities in NWT are high quality and affordable for families, and working conditions are improved for child daycare facility workers. Many families are finding there's insufficient amount of child daycare facility spaces, and the cost of child daycare is unaffordable for families. We would like to see change to the legislation that will result in an increase to the number of child care facility spaces. These proposed changes do not address additional spaces. The amendments to the legislation impact our Métis councils, as our Métis councils operate child daycare facilities in Fort Resolution, Fort Smith, and Hay River. The Métis councils have opened the child daycare facilities to ensure children receive early learning child care and Métis cultural and language programming. The proposed amendments do not address the implementation of the United Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, as it provides a lot of authority to the director. Example, approve licenses, handles complaints, power to suspend a license, and the director only reports to the minister. The director should also provide reports to and receive input from the Indigenous governments. Certification and wage grid for employees. One of the amendments to the legislation is to introduce a minimum wage for employees of certain early learning and childcare facilities. Another amendment is to set in place certification requirements for operators and staff. We would like to ensure certification includes Indigenous knowledge components. The increase in certification requirements may lessen the number of qualified early childcare educators. Many early childhood educators are leaving the industry due to insufficient staffing levels, low wages, and long hours of work. We hope the minimum wage requirements for childcare providers will encourage the childcare staff to obtain the certification that is now required. The proposed amendments includes provisions that the childcare facility must follow the director approved form for the contract for staff. See section 31. The facility needs flexibility to negotiate its own contracts for local requirements. Maximum fees for childcare services. The cost control measures restrict the ability of a non-profit board to manage its own finances and liability of childcare facilities. It will be a challenge for childcare providers to increase reporting measures and pay higher wages while fees charged for childcare are capped. The Northwest Territory Métis Nation is concerned that there is insufficient funding provided by the GNWT for childcare. Meeting to discuss the amendments. Operating an early learning and childcare facility is significantly a liability, but the Northwest Territory Métis Nation and the Métis Councils consider early learning and childcare to be extremely important to the success and health of Indigenous Métis children. The fast-tracked and lack of consultation, the Standing Committee of the Government Operations will be presenting their final report at the upcoming February-March 2023 sitting. The fast-track timeframe to provide input was not sufficient, particularly because there was a 2-week holiday. The Northwest Territory Métis Nation is concerned about the lack of government-to-government engagement to co-develop the proposed amendments to amend the Child Care Act. The GNWT should have met with the Northwest Territory Métis Nation to review the amendments of the Act to amend the Child Care Act. Other than that, I thank you for your time for bringing us forward, make our presentation.
Thank you very much, President Bailey, and thank you very much for taking the time to present to committee today. We really appreciate it. Committee members, I'd like to open up the floor for questions of President Bailey. Who would like to start us off here today? Or I guess the better question is, does anybody have any questions for President Bailey here this morning? Emily Knockleby.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to President Bailey for the presentation. It's always good to see your face and your choice of shirt. I always enjoy that. So I don't really have like any questions. I think wanted to say that, you know, everything that you are saying to us is something that we have heard, I think, from others in this committee that have come to present. I think it's been obvious that many of us also have our own frustrations with the rollout of this bill, this bill. And, you know, I guess to maybe put a question around it, how do you envision the GNWT like working with your group to execute education for your people? And in the sense of, I guess, is this something that you would be wanting to sort of take over from the government, or just looking more from a perspective of they need to have more conversation with you? I guess where I'm going with this is that I often feel sometimes we're better off to just put money directly to Indigenous governments and organizations rather than having the GNWT control it. So I guess I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Knockleby. President Bailey?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, what we have always been trying for is a self-government, you know, to operate our own programs that we do have, but unfortunately that's just not the way things have been working. And what we've been looking forward to is doing a government-to-government relationship so that we can set our own priorities and make sure that they work with each other. You know, we would like to have our own, I guess, process for how we educate our children. We want to have our own traditional knowledge and so on into our programs. We are concerned the wages probably won't be sufficient, so that we may be losing, you know, people in that venue to go to work. I think it's important that we first of all we meet together and we try to develop a program that's going to suit our needs, but we have to have a say into it. If we don't, if we're not involved, it's just giving it to us, and we're just an administrator for the GNWT, which is not what we want to be. We want to be able to educate our children with our own traditional values as well, to make sure that you know that part of it is not forgotten. But nonetheless, they still have to have the education part of it, which is where we need to have that government-to-government relationship so that we can make sure our kids are all on par with the education system that's out there today. Hope that answers.
Thank you, President Bailey. Emily Knockleby, do you have a question?
Yeah, Thank you for that. And, and a lot of times there is a want to have things devolved, but then, a lack of maybe capacity, or like you said, the process isn't there yet to take that on. And I really hear what you're saying about the worker. I've been very much listening to people around this act, and it's been a hot topic for my constituents, but I don't have a solution there. So I guess my second question is more around, if we can get the government to agree to this certification, including the Indigenous component, is that something that you envision your group being able to produce some sort of the curriculum for that? And the reason I ask again, and I'm not saying without some sort of compensation or something from the department to help with that development, but I guess where, again, like each nation and area and the territory is so unique and diverse that I don't see it being worthwhile to necessarily have the government decide for each community what the Indigenous training component would be like. So to me, I would like to see that be something that each local group gets to determine how that goes. And is that something that would be within the capacity of your organization to do? And is there a will and maybe an idea of how much time and cost that would take? Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Knockleby. President Bailey?
Thank you. Well, yeah, definitely. That's part of self-government that we're going for. I mean, we want to be able to decide, make those type of decisions, and I'm glad to hear that you're going in that direction. I think to come up with a price on how much it's going to cost, I think we can do that through collaboration and meeting with one another to decide exactly how much work that's going to take. But we definitely have the capacity to do something in that direction right now. We like I mentioned, we have three facilities right now that are going to be going strong. So we will have the employees. As far as getting them educated, I think we could come up with a good criteria together.
Thank you very much, President Bailey. Emily Knockleby, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. I think in further to that, just comment more than anything is that, we have trades programs with apprenticeships and that kind of facilitation. So maybe we need to start looking at our education workers in kind of the same manner and putting that same sort of investment there. So I agree with you, and I think just more of a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Emily Knockleby. Members, are there any additional questions? Emily Bonnet-Rouge.
Merci, Madam Chair, and merci, Mr. Bailey, for presenting to us some of your ideas and concerns regarding the Child Daycare Act. I know I come from small communities. I represent small communities too, and we just never ever have capacity or any funding coming our way to even have a daycare. After once you get a building, then you got to raise your own money. It's never fair for small communities. And I always advocate, since I got into this assembly, for small communities on every front, and a lot to do with the main ones that I focus on is healthcare and education. And I was really struck by what you were saying about the education piece. I know not many people follow the assembly and the Hansards or anything about education, but I even had the minister, I was questioned him for 4 days in a row on education. And what I was trying to get at there was, do they collect data on actual grade levels in our schools? And they were skirting around that, dancing around it all the time, and just, I was waving a document in my face from across the floor, and it's just the JK to grade 12 performance measures. Because the schools, they don't collect data on actual grade levels anymore. It's what they're saying. And I'm kind of really shocked about that. Because we're not meeting the grade levels compared to the rest of Canada. Like you're saying, education should be on par, and that's what I'm assuming that you're referring to. And that's a concern because, they've given up on us as Indigenous, people in our outlying schools there. They don't want to pay attention to us. They don't want to spend money on us. They want to keep us down down below, just like the colonialism that's been happening forever. They refute that, but we can use that all we want. But the thing is, and I guess there should have been more. I'm surprised that the news, they don't pick up on the stuff that I bring out on education, which is very important for all the small communities. They don't put that out there, so nobody really knows what's really being said in that area. Even for the leadership of the Ditcho First Nations, I always ask them, did you guys ever discuss education at all, at your assemblies? Because, and of course the answer is no, they don't. I'm not sure you guys talk about that, because I want to see support letters coming in from the different organizations to complain about the education system if you got concerns. That goes a long ways in helping on what I'm advocating for. So I'm just wondering if maybe you can just comment on something like that. Masi.
Emily Bonnet Rouge, President Bailey.
Thank you. Well, yes, I agree. Education, it comes up at every one of our assemblies to let you know that the grade levels, they're graduating with grade 12 with a grade 10 education. We see that. We see the troubles our children have when they go off to college. They normally go to college, they're back. But then normally that semester, the teachers don't have time for them to bring them back up to the levels that the other students down south are at. So it's definitely always an issue for us. I mean, like I said, with our daycares that we're starting, I mean, it's the beginning of the education for our children. It's very important that they get the proper facilities, the proper teachers to get them ready to start going to from K to 12. I think it's crucial for the funding to be adequate. What we're doing here in our small communities is we're starting with nothing. As you've mentioned in your comments there, that the small communities are lucky to have a daycare if they have one. And I feel very fortunate that we're able to get some funding from the federal government and some from the GNWT as well, so that we can build our facilities. We have one it's finished in Fort Smith. We have one being turned over from government to Hay River. They've been running that one. And Fort Resolution, we're having one probably, it'll be operations this year. And we're very fortunate for that, but we're still facing the problem of the lack of funding. There isn't enough funding for us to get our equipment, our teachers, get them, paid accordingly. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, because we used our funding to build our buildings from scratch. We had nothing, and not like the cities, the urban places. They have daycares on within 5 blocks. They got 3 of them. Maybe they got 5 of them for all I know. I don't know. I don't live down there, but they do have a lot of facilities and opportunities where they don't have to build their buildings. That's something that we had to utilize our funding for. So by doing that, it cuts the money that we have for education, for getting our people trained and getting our proper equipment, proper books, everything that we need for that. So, I mean, like I said, education is very important. It's very key for our people. It's we want to make sure that we have our traditional knowledge taught in there as well. That's why I want to be involved in creating the curriculum for the daycares. But definitely, if you need a support letter for that kind of stuff, I'll definitely work on getting you one. I'm pretty sure we send our resolutions to the assembly, so I'll just make sure that we follow up and get that to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bailey. Emily Bonnet Rouge, do you have a follow-up question? Thank you, Emily Bonnet Rouge. Thank you, Emily Bonnet Rouge. Members, are there any additional questions? Emily O'Reilly.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for the presentation, the written submission. One of the points made in your presentation, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where to look, is about the need for more daycare spaces. And I'm just trying to figure out how the bill can be changed in a way that's going to encourage or require that EC&E provide childcare spaces or funding for creation of childcare spaces. So maybe I can just get you to tell me what it is you need in terms of childcare spaces. Is it money? Is it access to more buildings, expansion of your existing daycares? And then what kind of changes are need to be made to the bill to actually make that happen? And if it's not the bill, what other pressure or things can we do to get the department moving on this? Because they have an infrastructure fund. It's not a lot of money in there. I keep pushing them to try to put more money in it, but any suggestions about how to change the bill to deal with that would be helpful. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MLA O'Reilly. President Bailey.
Thank you. Well, I don't have the act in front of me to actually change the act, but like I mentioned, I mean, we are going to be having, I'm only speaking for Hay River, Fort Resolution, and Fort Smith. That's the three communities that we represent, and we are going to be having daycare facilities. Over the past, we've had one in Fort Resolution, which was limited to how much our Metis children were able to access it. It was basically First Nations first, and we were lost. And so now we've developed that in our communities. We have one in each community that's going to be full operational. So the problem we have is the lack of funding. We definitely need funding. I guess it could be based off of proposals. If we can put forward a proposal that would be approved, so that we can have the proper financing to move forward with our building. Because I mean, like I said, all what we did with our funding that we've received so far is build our buildings. We still have to, we have to provide office equipment, computers, staff, wages, and maintenance. There's a lot of costs that we still need money for, and we've been on. We haven't paid for these buildings fully yet. It's over a long period of time. I think that's our main concerns. Is that we get funding for that, and like I said, the wages have to be comparable to government wages. I believe that if the wages are good, we're going to get more people interested in providing being, childcare teachers in the north, and we definitely need that. We need to have our own people. That's something that our own people are very good at, which is with children. And I believe that if we develop the criteria, that they would be very successful in working for us at a comparable wage, which will keep them, sustainable, happy at home, happy to do their jobs, and more in the public. So like I said, I don't have the act in front of me, but if we have those meetings that we talked about where we haven't had a chance to make any comments, we haven't been part of developing this act, I think it would be something we would definitely discuss on how we can move it forward. So more face-to-face meetings for sure.
Thank you, President Bailey. MLA. Members, does anybody else have any additional questions? With that, I'd like to take this opportunity, President Bailey, to thank you for not only your engagement here and your honesty of the status of the NWT Métis Nation on changes they'd like to see to this bill, but also on your engagement with all of the work that we're doing in our committees these days. We really appreciate getting to see you on screen, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to sit down with you in person sometime soon. So thank you so much for your time here today, but also your time that you've been investing in committee work on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'll see you guys again sometime.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Take care.
You too. Bye now. Members, with that, I would like to ask for a motion to move in camera. Thank you, Emily Knockleby, and thank you to members of the public who have joined us here today. Thank you.